What up, though? Welcome to Gangsta's Paradise. It's where I kick cautionary street tales. Click that like button, click that subscribe button, and click that little bell. That way you can get notifications for whenever I drop a documentary. Support Gangsta's Paradise by going to Teespring and purchasing GP merchandise. I appreciate the support. Keeping up with YouTube guidelines, I am not here to encourage folks to join gangs, cliques, mobs, or crews, but this is a fair warning if you choose to cross that line. Thank you all for joining me on Gangsta's Paradise. Salute to my subscribers as I continue my quest to reach 10,000 subscribers. For those checking out Gangsta's Paradise for the first time, subscribe to this channel, click that like button, and click that little bell. Checking out the comment section, and someone made a request to do a series on clubs that was cracking back in the day, like the infamous Rayful Lounge. This club is synonymous with many storylines we cover on these platforms. It was on and cracking up in that joint. Whomever thought they was somebody came through that joint. Good idea, and I just may do that. I appreciate the comment. For this one, I took GP on the road as I am coming to y'all from Washington, D.C., also known as D.C., the American Rome, a capital city, the capital of the world, the capital of the free world, the district, the federal city, Hollywood for ugly people, the murder capital. There are many players from D.C. like Wayne Perry, Big Boy, and Eddie Mathis. And one name probably stood out more than the rest is Rayful Edmond. As I roll through DC, I automatically get a patriotic feeling because there are so many symbolism of patriotism in this city. There is a dark side, and there is the underworld. There is the hustle gang, in which Rayful Edmond was once king of the capital. I also took a trip over to Baltimore and did a docu-short over there, and it's coming soon, so be looking for that. Check out my last one, Levon Vito Sutton. Subscribe to this channel, share this doc, click that like button. Who remembers Marion Barry, former mayor of the city? This dude got popped for smoking and he ended up getting elected back to office. Out here on the East Coast, Rayful Edmond, during the 80s, the Kingpin era, was widely considered the person who introduced crack to the city. Charismatic, likable, and a good basketball player. I've met quite a few people from the nation's capital, and they all had government jobs. The government is the #1 employer in the area. It's like a generational thing to have government jobs. Rayful wasn't considered a poor kid because both parents worked for the government. When it comes to the hustle gang, probably 80% of the kids I was around didn't have to sell drugs. And that seems to be the case with Mr. Edmond. Many dealers like Edmond made profits from the influx of drugs, and he was able to purchase designer clothes, jewelry, expensive cars, as Rayful sat in the best seats at Redskins and Bullets games. By the age 22, it was said he employed approximately 150 workers, mostly juveniles who worked the corners as pushers and lookouts. This was a high-profile case. As I said, in many other docu-shorts, the media take these cases, they come with these astronomical numbers just to make the dealer look like he's the biggest drug dealer in America, which adds on to getting these long prison sentences. Non-violent drug offenders should not spend the rest of their lives in prison. Yes, it's true, the drug caused destruction in the community, but so does fentanyl and prescription drugs. Folks dropping from overdosing on fentanyl. These drug dealers of whatever level get busted and get long prison sentences. Does not stop the flow of drugs in communities like Washington, D.C. It is someone waiting in the wings to take his place. is a revolving door. The same cycle repeating itself. This is intervention. Breaking the cycle is the business. Creating another Rayful Edmond is not the business. Subscribe to this channel. I am on a mission to get 10,000 subscribers, and I need you all to accomplish that goal. Share this doc, tell a friend. Put it in your YouTube playlist. Click that like button. You all can send your donation to GP Doc Cash App. Go over to teespring.com and purchase collector's items from Gangsta's Paradise merch. I appreciate the support. When crack first came around, we called it rock, and it was considered a recreational or party drug, an alternative high. It was expensive, so people from the hood generally couldn't afford it. People with money use rock cocaine. It's an open market, so many dealers like Rayful Edmond flocked to the industry, which brought the price down. Plus, all the extra additives involved in manufacturing the drug made it lose its quality. And then you add in street politics. The gang became incredibly violent. Check out the Best Friends doc that I did, and we can see how violent this gang can be. The 70s international hustlers era marched right into the kingpin era, where millions were made in the drug trade, and Rayful Edmond had his hand in the pot. Folks who were teachers, doctors, engineers, lawyers, and simple everyday workers got hooked on this drug. Police got paid off the trade as well, as I remember drug dealers calling the police on us. The police would roll up, stretch us out, take the money, and roll out with no reports being made. The crack game is popping in DC. The crack documentary on Netflix show how Bush was able to purchase cocaine right outside the White House. Rayful wasn't the only dealer in town, but clearly one of the most popular at the time, as vehicles crowded Hanover, Florida Avenue, Orleans, and the Trinidad neighborhoods by day and night. The crack epidemic made officers switch from revolvers to semi-automatic weapons. Though the young hustler wasn't charged with any murders, at least 30 murders was attributed to his organization. With violence surrounding the organization, Edmond was considered a hero in the hood, as people looked to protect him versus trying to bring him down. He had a sit-down with legendary Georgetown coach John Thompson, as Thompson did not want Rayful's influence on young people surrounding the program. Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, historically known to have protests as Confederates stormed the Capitol building. The Pentagon was attacked in nearby Virginia. It was reported that the terrorists were trying to hit a target in D.C. with that plane. Salute to people who lost their lives on that day. Presidentials, inaugurations, Congress, laws are created and passed in the House, the White House. Famous monuments like the Dr. King Memorial and the famous statue of Abraham Lincoln. Construction started on the White House in 1792. The main residence was largely built by slaves and employed Europeans. The Capitol building was still under construction when Lincoln took office. In 1989, Rayful and 28 others were hit with a 43-count indictment. Game over. It became a big storyline in the local news in D.C. Tight security surrounding this case as they separated defendants from the public with bulletproof plexiglass. They fly this guy to court in a helicopter, essentially making him out to be this big notorious drug dealer.
Verdict today in the Edmond drug ring trial in Washington. 24-year-old Rayful Edmond convicted of running a $2 million a week cocaine crime outfit in the nation's capital. The one-time schoolyard basketball star faces a mandatory life sentence now. 10 co-defendants, including friends and relatives, were found guilty on related charges. Security surrounding the trial was unusually tight. Names of the jurors were kept secret even from the judge and lawyers to guard against possible reprisals.
Edmond and others were not held in D.C. jail like most federal prisoners. They were locked up miles away at the Quantico Marine Base and flown into D.C. every morning before trial. 100 witnesses testified. Many of them were former Edmond gang members who turned state witnesses. Edmond was convicted and sentenced to 2 life terms in prison, and that should have been the end of his drug running days. But the DC crack kingpin was hardly ready for retirement. His original connect was on the West Coast, but upon his incarceration, he was able to keep his business going by hooking up with Osvaldo Trujillo Blanco Chiqui, a convicted drug felon. It turns out that Chiqui was cocaine royalty and son of Griselda Trujillo Blanco, also known as the godmother of the Colombian drug underworld and founding member of the notorious Medellin drug cartel. Subscribe to this channel. Click that like button. Send all your donations to GP Doc. I appreciate the support. The DC kingpin was eventually caught again and given another 30 years in prison. That was when Edmond turned snitch, as they say, agreeing to help the government identify as many as 100 other drug dealers in exchange for his mother released from prison. She had been serving a 24-year sentence. From this point on, Edmond started his career as giving up information to authorities. Just like the mafia, they started giving out basketball sentences and people who get ready to talk, giving up information. I'm glad I've never been in that situation, as many drug dealers have made deals in different capacities in order to lighten up their sentences. For cooperating with authorities, he was able to reduce his life sentence to 20 years, but he still has another case pending in Pennsylvania. So many people are wondering, is Rayful going to get out? He did give up a lot of information, and a lot of people did get locked up from the information that he was giving out. It's the same thing they say with Craig Pettis, because they gave him 9 life sentences, and that's a long time for a drug dealer. And it's true, you know, a lot of this stuff it brings destruction to the community. Yes, it does, but a lot of other things brings destruction to the community, especially when you bring drugs into a depressive type of situation. You have people, they made crack so cheap that the average person that was depressed can scratch up on $5 and go get some crack, and that's not really helping them, you know. So when he got in prison, it didn't rehabilitate himself, and it don't stop the game when you give people like that long prison sentences. He just kept balling, you know. I seen documentaries when he was talking about that. Matter of fact, I seen him on a news report where he was being interviewed, and he wasn't making the money he could have made while he was out on the streets, but he still was making a lot of money, and this was behind bars. So, but right now he got his sentence cut down to 20 years from the information he has been giving out, and he's been in behind bars like 30 some years as of today. And people are wondering what they're gonna do in Pennsylvania. That's what's up in the air right now when it comes to Rayful Edmond. And there's a lot of stories about what's going on in DC. You know, and as I roll around here, it sort of reminds me of New York. It has a lot of brownstone in this city, but I didn't get a chance to make it over to the hood while I'm here. And obviously, I didn't come to town to ride through the hood. I wish I could have got over there and see what was popping in the hood. I definitely got to roll through the hood in Baltimore. You know, it got some slums down there for sure, but it's slums in all cities, all major cities, all urban areas. You know, I got a chance to roll through Compton, South Central LA, South Side Chicago, East Side Detroit, West Side of Atlanta. I've been through a lot of hoods, you know. We basically all going through the same thing, you know. They got the kingpins in DC, they got the kingpins in Atlanta, they got the kingpins in LA. And at the end of the day, when you want these major kingpins, they take your story and they put it in the media and they blow it all the way up. And this adds on to these cases. Like I say, this is intervention and prevention. We don't want to make the next Rayful Edmond. This guy was getting a lot of money, but is it really worth it at the end of the day? I guess he was sort of like the freeway Ricky Ross of DC, like the first person that introduced crack to the city of DC. And like they say, he wasn't the only dealer, but he seems to be one of the most popular. This is Gangsta's Paradise. want y'all subscribe to this channel. Share this doc. Put it in your playlist. If you want to send a donation, please send it to GP Doc. I appreciate all the support. Make sure y'all get over to Teespring and check out some of that GP merchandise. We do have a lot of stuff coming up. We got a documentary coming up where we're going to have some visuals. I will be narrating it. If you guys out there looking for somebody to film you a documentary, you can get at us, send me an email, and we'll get with you and negotiate some things. If you want a narrator for some of your projects, just holler at me. I will be more than happy to do that. We can get on the phone, send emails, and we can negotiate. At the end of the day, DC is a great city. It's an international city as people from around the world come visit this city. Even though I think when Reagan and the first Bush was in office, we just had so much cocaine dumping in the hoods. It was just this big influx of cocaine while these guys were in office. When they talk about that crime bill, they were locking dudes up before Clinton got in office. It just increased when Clinton got in office because so many guys was getting popped with indictments in the 90s. And you had guys like Rayful Edmond pushing upwards to 2,000 kilos every so often in the city, right under the nose of the federal government. It's absolutely too much money being made in the underworld, in the drug trade. And a lot of that stuff help out these government agencies. There have been reports about how the CIA have their hands in the drug trade. Even if you look at Afghanistan, when they've been over there for so long, but you got to look at how the Taliban was able to take over Afghanistan so fast. You need money to do that. But then you got to look at the poppy fields over there. They control all that. So, they just in the past couple of years, they said the poppy fields just out of Afghanistan grossed a few $1 billion. So the Taliban, they got a lot of money. They were not able to go take over this country just off some rebel, I'm living in some cave type of stuff. It takes some money to actually fight a war. And a lot of this drug money help people fight these wars. We definitely help out these rebels, just from the profits made off the drug trade. So I do think that a lot of drugs was poured into this country, particularly cocaine, when Reagan was in office and the first Bush was in office. That's just my personal opinion. But again, DC is a great city. I didn't get a chance to ride through the hoods, but it's a lot of traffic and a lot of people around here, and it's a holiday weekend, so I will be back to DC. I love it out here. Had a good time. Had to do a story while I'm out here. I do be on the road with GP, going to different cities, checking out the scene. It's all good. This is Gangsta Paradise. Subscribe to this channel. One love, family.